Everyone, welcome to another edition of Empowering Conversations by empowHER India, co-powered by the Filmsters. My name is Disha, Communications Manager at empowHER India, and I'll be the moderator for this conversation. So we all spend a lot of time online, whether it's chatting with friends, learning new things, or just scrolling through social media that we all love to do. But while the internet is a great space, it also comes with its own set of risks. So today we are having a talk about how young people, adolescents, can stay safe online, know their rights, and find support when needed. Now, a little bit about empowerHER India and why we are doing this conversation. empowerHER India has been working for over 3 decades to empower women and girls in rural communities. We focus on essentials like sanitation, education, and life skills, but more than that, we are about creating opportunities for women and girls to thrive. And this series, Empowering Conversations, is one of the ways we bring the important conversations to the forefront. And to help us understand the topic of today better, we have two amazing change makers with us who are experts in digital literacy, safety, and youth empowerment. So let's meet them. So first we have Allison Ochs. She is an American Swiss social worker, author, lecturer, consultant, and she is very passionate about digital citizenship and social emotional learning. She has worked with over 50,000 students, parents, and educators worldwide. As a founder of Edit Change Management, Allison has created educational tools and books to teach children about responsible online behavior. And I would love to tell her book, Would I Have Sexted Back in the 80s, provides practical guidance for parents and educators raising teens in today's digital world. She also hosts The Things They Ask, a weekly radio show on the World Radio Switzerland. Thank you so much, Alison, for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
And we also have Anamara Baig, a changemaker in the social sector with over 15 years of experience in program implementation and community empowerment. And as the CEO of empowerHER India, she leads initiatives like Setu, which equips girls in the rural settings of Raigad, India, with essential life skills and overseas programs as WASH and financial literacy. Her passion for creating opportunities, empowering adolescents is the heart of everything she does. Welcome, Anamara. Thank you for joining on this conversation.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here. Yes.
Perfect. So, before we start the conversation, I would like to tell the audiences a little bit that yesterday was Safer Internet Day. And Safer Internet Day is basically a reminder for all of us using internet that we have a tons of opportunities all around us digitally. But it also, like I said, it also comes with a lot of risk. And it is a reminder of why it is important for us to understand these risks. And I feel like it makes total sense on why we are having this conversation, talking about digital safety and how we can be good digital citizens. So before we dive into the actual conversation, Alison, I would like to know from you that what exactly is the concept of digital citizenship and why is it important to understand for all of us?
Yeah, so digital citizenship is actually quite simple. If you think about citizenship, it's the way we behave in this world, the way we interact with one another. And it used to be that our parents would teach us how to interact with our friends when we were very small. You grow up, you say something, your parents overhear you, they correct you. They might say, oh, that's rude. You can't say it that way. Oh, you shouldn't do this. Oh, can you do it this way? And they are just constantly correcting you. And a lot of times what has happened is our children have gone online. We have literally just handed them a device with very little instruction other than don't talk to strangers and don't go on certain websites. We give them like 2 or 3 don'ts. And then they don't learn how to communicate, how to be ethical, how to be responsible, how to be kind online. And being a digital citizenship is actually participating in society, but in the digital part of it. And I don't think you should separate the two anymore. I think citizenship encompasses digital citizenship and citizenship. And we want to live in a world where people are kind, where they're helpful, and where we follow ethical and responsible rules. And it's about teaching this to children and kind of teaching parents as well how to talk to their kids about this. So there's a huge parent element involved in digital citizenship that's quite often overlooked.
And I guess, well, I was doing a research on the topic of whole digital citizenship and digital literacy. Like you said, correct. I feel like that's truly correct. We have given the devices, but not the information of how to use it. And through that research, it says like worldwide, we have almost 95% of adolescents from the age of 13 to 17 that they have devices, but they have zero knowledge of how to use it.
Well,
So
I'll give you a quick example. A lot of them don't even understand what they're giving away on their data when they use this. They don't understand that a 13-year-old or a 12-year-old, or even, they're not supposed to be on social media when they're 10, 11, and 12, but some of them are. But even a 13-year-old, if it's free, it isn't free. If things aren't free, somebody is using your data. They're selling your data. They're using your time. They're getting you to look at ads. They're doing things. They don't fully understand that, but they also don't understand what kind of information those platforms own from what they're using. So there's also quite a technical side of it. And they just like jump into these platforms, and they're very, very good at swiping and figuring things out, but they don't understand like a long-term perspective, how it might harm them. And my aim is having open conversations with teenagers, with young people. I mean, I work with primary school students as well, because we talk about adolescents and teenagers, but actually some very small children are making mistakes online because they take mom and dad's device, they go on and play a video game, and they don't know what they're doing, and they get themselves into all kinds of trouble. And my aim is to get enough information into the world that they don't get into trouble anymore, or at least not into the kind of trouble that's going to really harm them, into normal trouble where they can get corrected because you learn from mistakes, but not anything that's going to have a long impacting, harmful impact on them.
Yeah. And also,
Totally.
currently we're speaking about adolescents, but really, Allison, today there are many adults who also don't understand the implications of how they are interacting with all of us. I'm sure at some point have sort of gone on websites inadvertently and given away our some sensitive information. So that's why it becomes even more critical to sort of help them start thinking about this from a very young age. And
100%.
and you also made a very important point about not now we're at a time where we shouldn't be distinguishing between online and offline citizenship in that sense, because I would say my generation probably was the last one where we experienced a completely offline world as young adults. So we still understand that demarcation between what is being a good citizen completely offline, and now we slowly sort of the digital world was slowly and gradually introduced to us. But kids now, or young adults, are now born into this, right? So for them, it's all the same in that sense. So,
I think it's interesting that you say that my generation had this demarcation. I'm older than you, and I definitely experienced no tech when I was a child. And I was a child in the 70s, and I was in high school and a teenager in the 80s. And I mean, I definitely experienced my entire youth without any kind of devices. And I understand that demarcation. And I think for adults, sometimes we need to have that demarcation because wait a second, what do they mean here? However, our young people, they don't necessarily understand that. And I was just listening to some youths who were asking some questions to Jonathan Haidt this week. I was on a session that he gave live online. And he's the author of The Anxious Generation. And the youth, they were talking to him, and they asked a question, this isn't part of our life and you're just taking it away from us. If you take it out of schools, and how are we supposed to live without this? It's a huge part of our life. And living with it is learning to live without it. And the French have coined a beautiful term that I quite like. It's called digital sobriety. And sobriety meaning like going without, like being sober, like with alcohol. You need to learn to live with these devices and manage them, but you also need to know what to do if they're gone. And it could happen that we have some big technical glitch and they're gone. I've worked with a school before that they got hacked and they had to shut down all tech in the school for a few weeks because of a hack. And I have to tell you, it was a real shock to some of the younger teachers, and the older teachers who had grown up without it managed it much, much better because they knew the difference between the two. So I would like to make sure that youth understand how to put it away and be completely away from it for a while and survive without it, as well as use it. I mean, it's very helpful. I like my iPhone and I like my computer. We're using it for a very purposeful reason right now. I don't want to get rid of it. I like it that I can be talking to you in India while I'm sitting in Switzerland.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've also heard this term called a digital detox, right? So it may not, you spoke about sobriety, and there is this like a more temporary kind of a sort of action that we can take, all of us in our lives, where, and I suppose the when you spoke about this glitch that happened in one of the schools where they were out of any kind of tech for a couple of weeks, I suspect that a lot of these kids must have gone into this almost like withdrawal symptoms, right? Of tech, even like not having your, not being able to go online or something like that. Then that becomes very difficult to deal with.
You know, I've seen a child in school, like when I was visiting a school, being actually in a type of withdrawal symptoms. It was quite something. I think it's the most I've ever seen. And I'll never forget it. And I realized what was happening while it was happening. And I did go to the school and say, hey, you know, there's a problem here. And they were like, we're well aware. But he really needed this digital detox. And it doesn't take that long to get over it and feel the effects of the positive non-use of technology. And it feels wonderful when you don't have it anymore for a while. You feel freed. You feel relaxed, you feel good, and you just have to actually say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go for a weekend and I'm not going to use my phone. I'm going to put it away. I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to put it in a drawer. I'm going to take computers away. And then all of a sudden you look around and think, oh, I can't do this anymore. Oh, what do I need to do? And you need to figure that out. And I have memory of not having it, so it's easy for me. But some young people don't remember not having it. And so that brings us to this element that sometimes we have to teach them how to be without, how to be bored without, that it's okay, that they're going to be okay, that they can do something else. And once they're like, oh, actually, this is really nice because I'm doing this, they love it. I've only had positive experiences with doing digital detoxes with teens. They actually really enjoy it.
And Allison, now that we know like how the adolescents usually interact, you know, with through internet, some out of your experience, what are some of the dangers or some of the common dangers that you have seen that adolescents face, and why should they be aware of that? If you could throw some light on that.
There are like overarching dangers, and then there are specific dangers. So I'll talk about like the big overarching dangers first, and then I'd like to dive into some more specific ones. Overarching dangers for them is they're not getting enough sleep. And that sounds really silly. Like that's a danger that they're not getting enough sleep, but it actually is, because we have a mental health crisis. And we know that if you don't have enough sleep, it's going to affect your mental health. So our teens have sleep deprivation, but they also have social deprivation because they're connecting with one another online, and they're not just hanging out and playing. They're not just hanging out and communicating. If you think back, Disha and Anamara, to your youth, I'm guessing that you'll think of a lot of time hanging out with your friends. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
So they're not doing that so much anymore. And if they are doing that, they have a phone in their hand and they're looking at their phone rather than looking at their friends, or they're hovering over a phone. So they have social deprivation and sleep deprivation, but they also are having problems with their attention and their focus. So they have attention fragmentation and they're suffering with addiction. So those are, and this is based off of, these are Jonathan Haidt's themes, which I very much agree with. For me, I mentioned sleep as number one, because I know that if kids are getting enough sleep and if they're getting enough social interaction, they're getting those two things, usually things start to align. So for parents who are listening, this is your job. You need to make sure your children are getting enough sleep and that they have enough social time without screens. So when it comes to specific online dangers, and I mean, they have so many online dangers, that from artificial intelligence and the scams that happen, that somebody can make a deep fake of them. So I know for a fact that a lot of young girls right now are very, very worried about having a deep fake nude of them made or deep fake porn of them made. And recently when I was in a school, they were saying, what can we do to protect ourselves from this? And I've noticed a trend from quite a few girls to have an Instagram with like one photo or no photos. And they're being more careful about what they're posting, which is wonderful. However, it is nice if they can post something. And they're worried. So if I were a parent, one trick you can do is to try to watermark your images. So that would just be something I'd just like to throw out there. That can help. But also don't put pictures out there and keep your profiles private unless you can handle somebody taking that image and misusing it. And they are being misused like crazy because it is so easy to take an image and put it into a deep fake like porn generator. And I really worry about this. So that is a danger. And then the artificial intelligence has also come to some pretty sophisticated scams. And there are a lot of romance scams that teenagers are faced with, and sextortion. So what happens in a romance scam most commonly is somebody's going to get online with you on Snap or on Insta and like slide into your private messages and start talking to you. And they're going to flirt with you. And this person is going to look like they're your age, act like they're your age. They might even be part of a gang and be your age. And then they're going to probably, with sextortion, they're going to send you an inappropriate image of themselves, a nude. And then they might ask for one in return. And then bingo, you're done. Because then they say, we're going to send it to all of your friends if you don't pay us money. And this is something that causes a lot of harm for kids. And it's an uncomfortable topic to talk about, but it's something that I think has to kind of be pushed into the forefront, because I can't tell you how many of them are faced with this. And recently in another, I go to so many schools and talk to so many teens. And, one of the big questions they were asking me was, how do you know if it's real? Like, how do you know if somebody really likes you? And how do you know if I can trust someone? Now, this is a conversation for mom and dad to be having with their children. This is a classic family discussion. And I'm happy to have these discussions with youth, but I do believe that parents should be having more conversations with their children about what does a healthy relationship look like? And is it normal that you're talking online? And what are some of the red flags that this could be a scam? And, a lot of times we think of scams having to do with big money. They don't always. Some of it has to do with just taking your data, embarrassing you, and trying to get you to give them a little bit of money.
Allison,
and, obviously there are other harms as well, like just from bullying to everything else. But those are some that are unseen, that I promise you teens are facing, and a lot of us don't see, and we need to see it.
Allison, with the demographic that we work, Empower India, it's only adolescents, but these are girls and boys that are from villages, rural communities, right? So you can understand that in India, especially in rural communities, we live in this very strong patriarchal structure. So now children are kind of torn between this one world, which is sort of, very family oriented, but also with certain very strict rules, especially for girls. But then there is this massive change that is happening where the outside world is coming into your homes, right? So these two worlds for these adolescents are colliding, and so they are interacting with the digital space, but are being very secretive about it, and that's where the problem lies. Because what happens is that when such untoward things happen to them, they don't have anywhere to turn to, right? And that becomes a huge mental burden. A lot of we are aware of suicides that happen
Yes.
because of this, the fear of social humiliation and so on. So I just feel like, how does one address that?
So imagine a scenario like I just said. You're from a religious background, you're from a tight-knit rural community, you are curious about this big other world that's out there. You get online, somebody tells you you're beautiful or you're handsome and starts flirting with you. They tell you, please, this is modern, share your picture, this is what everybody is doing. You do this, and then you get this email, we're going to share it with your parents, and you're from this very patriarchal, strict family. I mean, I can see a child deciding to end their own life. I mean, I wouldn't want them to. I hope they wouldn't, and I hope they would be listening, but they're not going to be on LinkedIn, I don't think, listening to us right now. But I would want them to be listening to us right now to understand, please contact me, contact an adult. We will help you. I think it's about getting information out there to them. I think it's about saying, hey, we're here to help. I think it's about letting parents know that they need to soften a little bit and tell their kids, I'm here. And you might make a mistake, but come to me if you make a mistake. And I understand, I come from a very religious background as well, very strict as well. And I understand that. And I understand also how hard it is. But I also understand if you're given the option that your child would harm themselves, or that you would actually, talk to them about these things, every parent's going to choose, I'm going to talk to them about this. So some of the biggest regrets I think sometimes parents have is when they realize their kids didn't come to them when they were in trouble. And if there are parents out there listening, it doesn't matter how strict you are or what religion or culture you have, you want to be sharing with your children, and they are confronted with this big online world, and they are seeing things, and you need to be able to communicate with them openly about them. But number one, you need to tell them what to do if something goes wrong, and that you will be there for them and that you will still love them.
So I think what different organizations and even like government initiatives need to do is mass dissemination of how, for both the adolescents as well as the parents, on how to deal with the cyberbullying or any kind of cyber related digital sort of problems that they might have. Allison, if I may just add, that there's an organization that I'm aware of that works on legal rights, but specifically with the digital world. So when there are cases of cyberbullying, or where there is harassment, online sexual harassment, etc., they reach out. They have collaborations with different social media platforms or whatever online digital platforms to take down certain things that might be up. So that's great. You have one organization doing that, but there is, I suspect there is a certain responsibility even of the platforms to somehow address this issue, which is very prevalent. So do you feel like that's a possibility for like a Meta or any other sort of
yeah, I absolutely think that some companies need to do some social responsibility when it comes to this kind of thing. I do think that Meta absolutely should be doing much, much more than they're doing. There are a few companies that are doing initiatives like this, but for the most part, I don't think they're doing enough. I love to see that Apple keeps on adding new things for protection and safety and for well-being on their devices. I think that I have Apple, so I can't speak for all other devices. So I don't want to, it's not like I'm doing publicity for Apple, but I just see it on my own device. It's constantly updating now. I set a bedtime, my device goes to sleep. There are all these amazing things that are happening within the devices that 10 years ago, it wasn't the case at all. I have much more child protection possibilities with the phone. However, I don't think they're going far enough. I think that they can do more. I think more needs to be done in schools. I think that they need to really pull back. You have to understand, though, for them, they're worried that they're going to lose money if they don't pull back. I mean, that's part of the problem as well.
Absolutely.
So I would like to go back a little bit on the portion, like you said, the unheard things, that is online harassment, cyberbullying, all of that. So I feel it not only takes a toll on the safety, but also, the psychological health of an adolescent or anyone using the internet. So if you could tell me what kind of, psychological effects does online harassment or cyberbullying has on young people?
They have a huge effect. So I think that one of the things that we misunderstand is the long-term psychological effects that bullying can have on someone. And I mean, it can be very, I mean, it starts with they're going to lose self-esteem. They're going to stop believing in themselves. Then they might have trouble sleeping. They might develop panic attacks. They could definitely easily slide into a depression because of this. And I have seen cases where it has taken years for a child to feel better. And even after that, they are still a type of lack of self-confidence because of what happened to them when they were a teenager online. And the statement, girls will be girls or kids will be kids, it's part of life, there are just bullies out there, they should just get thicker skin. I'm not okay with that. I one time had a conversation with a mother who actually did say, well, girls will be girls. And, I know my girl's being mean, but like, come on, we were all mean too. And the difference online is it used to be that when she's correct that, if we remember our youth, we might remember somebody being mean to us. Mm-hmm. However, that meanness, we had our facial expressions that we were showing when we noticed it. The other person who was saying something to us saw that we were hurt. Second of all, we had this maybe in school or in the physical world, but when we went home, we closed our family door behind us. And in our home, we were safe. In our home, well, we should be. I mean, for the most part, I know there are children who have unsafe homes. That's something different. But if I take a normal, healthy family, a child goes home and in their home, they're safe. Nowadays, a child goes home and this harassment continues. And not only that, they can replay it over and over and over and over again. And this has a very large psychological toll on them because it's like they're sitting in this yucky, mucky mess all the time and they can't see out of it and it drags them down and they feel like they can't see away from it. And that's why, one of the things I tell kids if they're involved in this kind of thing is definitely don't react. I always tell them, don't react, take proof that this is happening. Do not answer, do not message back, do not react if somebody's being mean to you online. You take a screenshot of it and then you turn your device off and you need to learn healthy coping strategies. You need to learn how do you come down from a stressy situation. And one of the problems our kids face is coming off of a stressy situation for a lot of kids is going online. When they're stressed, they go play video games. When they're stressed, they scroll on Instagram. This is not healthy coping. Healthy coping is cooking, Healthy coping is doing yoga. Healthy coping is going on a walk. Healthy coping is mindfulness. So it's about introducing to kids when something like this starts, what do you do? And teaching them, and it can be doing sports. It can be anything, right? You can go kick a football around, you can play basketball, but you need to do something to cope that is healthy and non-digital.
Yeah.
And go ahead,
Sorry.
Anamara.
It's interesting you say that because there is one aspect of it where the negative sort of impact of public shaming and all of that is there, but also there is a negative impact where the children today are almost that the dopamine hit, which is feels positive and really good in the moment, they are addicted to that. So, and actually our brains are probably not meant to get that level of dopamine constantly.
No.
And when you don't have that, like when you're talking about the digital detox, you feel bad because there's a complete crash, right? Like there is no dopamine being the feel good hormone that is being created in your brain, and social media is giving you that visually. So even that's over time, even though you're feeling good in the moment, it's so detrimental to your mental health in the long term, right?
It is. It is very detrimental to your mental health in the long term, and it can really, really hurt you. And I think that teaching kids these healthy, you mentioned, Anna Marie, that you guys teach life skills. This is perfect.
Yeah.
And healthy coping strategies definitely add that into the program if it's not already there. And figure out, kids, when you're stressed, when you're being bullied, what can you do that has nothing to do with tech? What are your next steps? How do you react? What do you need to do? And sometimes calling a friend is a helpful thing. That might be with your phone, but don't text them, call them. Because there's a difference between texting and calling. And a phone call, a FaceTime, is even better because it's much more rich, because you can see the person's face if they can't get to them. The best would be go to them so you can give them a hug and talk to them, cry, get it out. And usually, once you've talked to someone, you feel much better afterwards.
And I just wanted to share this kind of story that I had, that we were talking about overuse of mobile phones. So last year we went in Raigad region in Karjat. There was this community intervention that we were doing. So a lot of parents had these complaints that our children are overusing mobile phones. So we had this like community intervention when we told the kids to not use mobile phones for like 1 week. And then post 1 week, when we went for a survey and meet the children, they literally responded and say, we didn't know what to do without the mobile phones.
Yes.
So so that exactly proves the point that you guys are trying to say. And that's when we held a session on mental health, meditation, and all the things that you could do without the mobile phones in your hand. So
yeah,
I think we do have connections with mobile phone, but even though we live, connected to everyone, we are still too far from each other. And, in real world, we are not connected if we see it in a true way. So I feel it's very important for, adolescents to know these practical tips on how they could get away from the digital world and be connected in the real world. Face to face, like you said, instead of texting, you should call, meet face to face. Having those in-person conversation is very important. But at the same time, I also feel they should also know about the rights, the legal protections that we have in the country or worldwide. So Allison, if you could share what are some of the kinds of legal protections in place for these adolescents if they are facing any issues as such that we spoke about.
I will say that I find that there are legal things in place, and that's good. However, they're overwhelmed, and it doesn't always work correctly. What I do want to say is I looked up in India, because the governments can't keep up fast enough. The police forces can't keep up fast enough. And a lot of times, if you're scammed, it's going to be somebody in a different country. And then how are they supposed to do that? I know that in Switzerland, one time I went to the police, not to the police. I first called the phone company, and then I went to the police, and they were just like, tell the kid to be smarter. Like, sorry, like this, I mean, we get, so many calls every day, and this is not going to work. And I have to say, I was a little bit frustrated because we were talking about a minor here. And it's true that it wasn't that bad, the situation. However, there was a situation. And this situation didn't have to do with nude images or something like that. It was about political radicalization. And that is one of the dangers that they face that I forgot to mention. So kids can be politically radicalized online. But the laws in India, I looked up specifically for India, how do they deal with deepfake porn, deepfake nudes? There isn't legislation in India yet, from what I found online. However, what they're using, which I think is really interesting, is they're using it under reputation damage. So you can charge someone. They will just use because they're damaging your reputation in essence. It makes a lot of sense. So until maybe they make a law against this, they are pushing it towards reputation damage. So if somebody has this happen to them, they should know, hey, wait a second, they are damaging my reputation. I can legally attack this person and take it down. I do want to mention there are international organizations for minors that help take these images down. One of them is called ICMEC, and it's the International Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And it would fall under the exploited children piece. And if you contact them, if you're a minor and somebody has put something inappropriate of you online, they will go and they have technicians who will help remove it. So that's ICMEC, ECMEC. And the other is In Hope. And these are two organizations that anyone around the world can contact if they are a minor to get content of them removed.
That's great that you have shared.
It's important to know that you can do that, and there are international organizations. However, they're swamped, they're overwhelmed. So it's best to avoid having that happen.
And Allison, you had shared some of the tips to to protect ourselves so that the adolescents can protect themselves while facing such risk online. Could you share some more practical tips on how they could protect themselves while using or navigating online on the internet?
For teens, so first of all, I think there are a few things that they need to do, and one of them is to keep their social media private, not to befriend someone that is not really a friend that they don't really know. So that would be, for me, that would be like a really important thing, that it's not about growing and how many followers you have. It's about, this is a group. If they do want to have a lot of people that they connect with, they need an adult on there helping them manage their content, and they're at high risk of having their images misused. So that would just be like the basics for starter. And I think that we all know that. I think that some of the most important things that they need to realize is to use their phones and their screens with intention, and use the parts of their phones that are now set up for this, like do not disturb, sleep mode, that they can focus, that they put their phone in a different space, that they have a bedtime for their phone, that they don't sleep with the phone in their room at night, and that they have spaces in their house and times when they don't use their phones. There's something that I think is kind of funny. A lot of young people now are talking about having a slow start to the day. And a slow start to the day just means you wake up without your phone next to you, without your computer next to you. You maybe have a cup of coffee, do some yoga, or and talk to your family, and get dressed and ready for the day before you look at your phone. And having, it's so simple. It doesn't cost any money. Anyone can implement this within their culture, within what they like to do. And starting your day with a slow start and ending with a slow end can help so much. So you start slow, you get up and you enjoy the people around you. You get dressed, you do maybe something for yourself, mindfulness, sit outside and enjoy the sunrise with a cup of coffee, whatever it is you like, however your age is. And at the end of the day, you have a bedtime for your phone, and you put your devices away. And you keep that strict no matter what. And you don't take it to your bedroom. And that already, that very, very small little tiny thing there can really help a lot. So it's small little adjustments that you can take step by step, and you'll already start feeling better. And then you can take the next step. I know I took a very bold step this year, and I took social media, all of it, off of my phone. And I have a really old, bad, kind of screen broken phone that has no SIM card, and it has my social media on it, and I keep it in a drawer. So when I need to post something, I can. And I still have all social media. I have to for work, but I use it at a desk. I don't use it on my phone. And it took me about 2 weeks to get used to that. And the first week was really hard because I would want to get out my Instagram to show somebody something, and I couldn't. And instead of showing people, I'll tell them now. I'll say, oh, on Instagram, I saw this very funny thing. If you're interested, I can send it to you. And then I actually explain it to them without getting out my phone. And I remain in this direct connection with the person rather than diving into a phone. And it has made my life so much richer. Just so it's very simple things and kids usually can't do it without their mom and dads. So this is where I'm going to speak to the mom and dads who are listening, and to the educators. We need to model this. So it starts with us adults. We can't be hypocrites and be on our phones and have them next to our beds all the time and be scrolling all the time and say, you're not allowed, you should do better, teenager. We need to lead by example.
Yeah. And kids always model parents' behavior.
They do. I heard somebody the other day saying that if you're reading, they used the example of The Economist. If you're reading The Economist, your child isn't necessarily going to read The Economist. And I was thinking, as they were saying that, probably not a 12-year-old, but by the time they're 18, they will. So I beg to differ. If they see you reading books, they see you reading journals, if they see you reading academic papers, they will think this is what it means to be an adult. And as I reach this age, I think I might want to. And I have found that, yes, my children did model me when it came to this kind of thing. And I do think it is really important. I think kids model us much more than we think. If they hear us listening to calming music while we're working, going on walks, they will start to follow suit.
And I think it is said that we all live in a very fast-paced world. So I think, Allison, your advice would be great, and we could have this whole slow-paced life moment all together so that we get on track again, like we used to. So
Exactly.
that would be perfect. That would be the perfect world that I could imagine right now.
It's not about giving it up. Like I said, I had my slow start to the morning this morning, and then I came here to my computer to call with you. But it doesn't mean you don't use technology. It just means you're more mindful in the way that you're using the technology, and that you're aware of what it's doing to you, and you take back ownership of your life.
Correct. Perfect. Okay, great. Anamara and Allison, to wrap up this conversation, would you like to give some last piece of advice to everyone listening, be it adolescents, parents, educators, all around the globe? Would you like to tell something to them?
Anamara, do you want to?
Go ahead, Allison.
Okay, I'll go first. I think that probably I just mentioned modeling behavior, but I actually think my biggest bit of advice would be connect with your students if you're a teacher, and if you're a parent, connect with your children without devices in a meaningful way, and ask them questions about their online spaces and listen to them when they're answering, because sometimes we misunderstand our children. And so it's also about asking, why are you using this right now? And how is it helping you? All right, could we possibly shift? So it's really in having these really deep conversations with your students and with your children. And I would probably say also, share what you struggle with. Like I talked about my Instagram experience and my social media experience, and move it. Take take big steps yourself and then share how you're doing. And also for educators, you can say, I did this and this is how I felt. And, I understand you guys, but this is how I'm feeling afterwards. So it's about kind of sharing this journey together.
Yeah, and I think for me, I would like to sort of address the parents and, just tell them that children, when they're adolescents, adolescents, they you can expect some kind of risky behavior from them because that's just the truth, right? Like there is going to be something, everything's changing for them in those years. But having said that, because that is the nature of that time period in their lives, I think it becomes very important for parents to for children to feel that they don't feel that fear of judgment from their parents, in order for them to be able to come and tell them if something is wrong, because it's inevitable. I think at some point they are going to do something. So to be able to, they should feel, the parents should make their children feel accepted in any way. Despite what they do, they are accepted. I mean, you don't have to condone what they're doing, but it doesn't mean that they shouldn't feel that you'll not love them or you'll judge them and so on. So that, I feel like if that's there, more and more children will be comfortable to come and tell their parents and maybe avert some really major catastrophe in their life. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And it's they need to feel that you are there for them, and no matter what. Beautiful.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you so much, Allison and Anamara, for sharing all of your wonderful stories, thoughts, and advices to everyone watching the conversation. Allison, thank you to you again for joining us and sharing your expertise with us.
Yeah,
so,
Allison, I would like to thank you as well for your time. I know you're very busy, but you've taken out the time to speak to us. We're very grateful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Happy to be here.
Perfect. And before we wrap up to the audiences, just a quick reminder that keeping adolescents safe is a collective effort. So let's work together and do things that we want to do and achieve in the future to create a safe digital environment for everyone. And you could see on the board right now is the links to our panelists' social media handles. You would like to connect, support, do join them there. You can DM us as well at empowHER India. Share your thoughts on how you're liking these conversations. What more do you want to see? And of course, coming to the life skill sessions that we host for adolescents in rural, if you want to support in any way, do donate from the website link, and you can scan on the QR code right here. And that's it. And we'll see you in the next edition of Empowering Conversations. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in, and will you see you in the next one. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.